Going to university has become the standard, but what are the alternatives and what are the alternative ways of financing it? We have a really interesting story today from Ismail, who tells us how he got through it. Okay, so Ismail, obviously you started up SATIFs. Can you just tell us about, what's the approach of SATIFs to, to helping students and everything else that you do?
I'd say the biggest thing is giving them the inspiration to do something.
Okay.
So for me, myself, it didn't actually begin as a business or an organization. It began because I chose not to take a tuition fee loan. I'm not kind of pro-debt at all.
Yeah.
And I had to figure out a way to make money, essentially. And the pressure of university tuition fees gave me that push, and I found out things about myself that I otherwise wouldn't have. To be creative, I'd done things I wouldn't have done. And if I can, I know others can too.
So, can you tell us a bit about the story of exactly, more detail, how it exactly started? You said it came from a place of pressure.
Yeah, I guess it begins with Nick Clegg, right? Tuition fees tripled to £9,000. Along with that tripling, the interest on the loan became real and not just nominal.
Yeah.
One big issue that I've had, not just because of university, but even before that, is the normalization of debt in society.
Okay.
So most people graduate with £30,000-40,000 of debt. 3 or 4 years later, you're expected to get £200,000-300,000, at least in London minimum, for a mortgage, and I didn't want to do that. So I just chose not to take a loan, and I had to figure out ways to go about making money for myself. And I can't complain, it worked out. So within 2 years, I think I was set for the majority of my degree. And that's when things took a push, because I was able to focus on others and not just on me.
Perfect. Yeah. So it came from that 9K change that took place.
Ironically, yeah.
And then it grew into teaching other things.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are the challenges that students face? You're a current student. What do they face now that they didn't before? I mean, there's the debt, but what else do you think?
I think it would be interesting to see what you mean when you say before, because there's 20, 30 years ago within our parents' generation, and with most people from ethnic minority backgrounds, education for them was almost non-existent.
Okay.
But then go back, a few thousand years, look at the time of Plato and Aristotle, education meant something completely different, I think. Nowadays people study because they want a career, which isn't a bad thing, but I'd say it kills creativity.
Okay.
So I myself, with my own personal experiences, I've been told time and time again, do this because an employer would like it one day, or don't do this because somebody else won't like it. But you don't focus on things that we actually enjoy and we actually like.
Culturing yourself,
exactly.
etc. So could you tell us, maybe you've got some stories or insight into what effect this 9K fee had on students and still has today? So you talked about leaving uni with so much debt and stuff.
I think it's a shame, but I would say for most people it doesn't make a difference, because for most people it's just a bigger amount of debt. They're not concerned. I would say anybody who has issues, for example, I know the Muslim community is affected with the interest. I've spoken to people personally who've chosen not to go to university, which is a shame, because that's a already the minority communities are on the lower end of the income spectrum, and they're being hindered even more.
So you've got your How I Beat the 9K seminar workshop. Could you just tell us a bit about summary of what you talk about there?
Sure. So I told you that I decided not to take a loan. I realized that I wasn't the only person. Men and women from across the country have actually done the same thing. So the nature of the event is to just put these people together to tell others that it's possible. Because one thing I'd realized is with a lot of people, they're put off by 9K. So you hear 9K and you think it's not possible. And what makes you realize is others. So I come from a particular background with a particular set of skills. Not everybody can relate to that, but it's fine because there's somebody else that can relate to it. So giving everybody like that the opportunity to share what they have.
So how do you do it then?
Come to the events. So one thing I've realized about myself and about many other people is that everybody is good at something.
Yeah.
And I'd say that they're so good at something that others would want to learn from them.
Yeah.
So with me, I kind of have always had this thing for business and economics at A-level was actually my best subject. So I started to teach that. I've also had a thing for Quran and Arabic for a while, and I utilized that. And that's kind of my channel and how I made things happen. But I know not everybody has that. A close friend of mine actually, his thing is design, and ironically he does medicine, but he has a passion for design, and so he started his own design company.
Oh, wow.
And that's his way of paying for 9K.
Yeah.
Different people have different stories, but the outcome is always the same. You know, those that try make it.
That's very interesting, because it's like before you finish uni, you could end up with a career in that way as well, and you get experience that you wouldn't usually get being in uni. So it's pushing you much further than just beating the 9K, isn't it?
Definitely. I think speaking to people in different areas of industry, nothing gives you greater experience, I'd say, than having your own company, because you're not just, I guess you put the title CEO, but you are everything at the beginning, because you haven't got a team. And you have to be motivated by something beyond money, because there's not much of that to begin with.
Okay, so at Satif, so what else do you offer apart from the 9K? I saw on the website stuff about internships, etc.
The vision is education and inspiring young people, and it's given by young people. So there's kind of a How I series. It began with How I Beat the 9K. We followed this up with How I Got an Internship. We got young people from ethnic minorities. Some got internship with Shell, with Google, with investment banks, and they shared their stories. Third kind of title of the How I series was How I Succeeded After University, a Muslim woman's perspective, which is very interesting, because I know through first-hand experience that some of them have challenges that men don't have. So what better kind of platform to have than women themselves speaking? You had journalists from The Guardian, barristers, people doing PhDs. Again, it's all about inspiring young people using young people. And that's very powerful, because it's the person is right in front of you and they're like you. It's not like they're too ahead of you. Exactly.
You can relate directly. What I want to ask you is, obviously the 9K or any debt can be a big barrier, right? Whether you beat it or not, you've got that burden of either having the debt or having to work to be able to pay it before it's debt. Would you say degrees are still worth it then, with all that?
Interesting question. I think it depends on what metric you're using to measure worth. So it's definitely worth thinking, why do you want to go to university? And one thing that I found out about myself is you don't go to university solely for what you learn through lectures. No way. It's the people that you meet, the connections that you build, and one of the biggest skills that you gain is the ability to work independently. Because through secondary school and college, you do get kind of a spoon-fed with your education. Here, you can do whatever you want. You can go start your business, no problem. But your essay deadline is still there, and you have to meet that, and you have to manage time yourself. So in that sense, it's useful. Whether it's worth £9,000 a year or not, it's relative to the individual.
Okay, that's a good answer, I think. Okay, so there's not just obviously university though, is there? There are different certificates that you can go and get out there. You could try to be self-employed from after college even. Have you seen anyone take these kind of routes?
I know people that have chosen not to take the university route because of the loan, to have gone down those routes. I think one of the biggest challenges, at least in my opinion, it's social barriers. The expected step after secondary school is college, and you're expected to go to university. That's what you do as a successful person. And so we measure success by these really bog standard metrics, which I don't necessarily agree with. You can be successful without university. You can still be intelligent. But it kind of starts with the parents' generation. And it's not to kind of shift the blame on them. I can completely understand where they come from as well. Because they came here at a time of not having any stability. Right? So the one thing that they want for their kids as well, it's stability. And now we kind of have that, so we need to make sure that the mindset that we have is something that we can give to the next generation, so they can actually pursue what they'd consider their own dreams.
Perfect. So where can we find out more about Satif, how to get into any of your seminars, etc.?
Satif.co.uk.
.co.uk, Thanks a lot, and I wish you the best.
Thank you very much.
I sat down with Ismail right next to his university. We had a great discussion about how he just refused to take a loan to get, to do his education.
So he didn't at all go for the traditional option of taking a £10,000 loan to pay for university. He just went all the way himself.
Yeah, and so he started a business to cover his costs
while at university.
Yeah, while he's at university. Okay. So he started that at the beginning of his degree, and by the second year, he'd covered it basically. So
the whole degree?
Yeah, the whole degree.
Okay.
And in fact, he had delayed, so he just missed that £3,000 one, I think. So he had to go for the £9,000 a year degree, which was when the fees went up. So it was tough, but he did it, he put his mind to it.
Now, university is not, obviously, it's not something that is essential as such. You can go without university, but we all know that it's a privilege and it's something that people oftentimes want to begin their career with a degree. And we know that the cost of university now is a lot higher than it used to be. So for most of the youngsters and the parents out there, the main concern is, how do I pay my university fees without incurring interest? And that's, I think that really is the crux of it. How do you manage to pay $30,000 for a 3-year course with no interest at all? And I think Ismail's example is a good example, because many others can draw inspiration from it, but also at the same time, practical advice and tips on how to go about funding themselves through university. I myself didn't have to go through that, because when I went to university, it was $1,500 a year. It's manageable. I really don't know what I would have done if I was going to university now. And I had to pay $9,000 a year plus living expenses. I would have no clue really how to go about doing that. So for me, really, it's definitely something that people should consider.
You got to think outside the box, don't you? I mean, also, what I like about the story is that he just put that effort. It probably did mean like 3 hours a day more now, now and then. It meant putting in that effort, putting in that time to get that business working, so then he could pay it off. It doesn't come for free. If you don't want to compromise, you don't want to take a loan, you got to be willing to give something first, up front, isn't it? So
this is the question of, he did mention why people go to university. You asked him, should people go to university, is it relevant? And he went and said, well, it depends on why you're going. And what I took from that was, it's not just about going for grades and classes,
and job,
it's about doing something you actually want to excel in, you have an interest in. And if that's the reason why you're going to university, and there's a requirement to pay $30,000 a year, then the sacrifice is justified. But if you're going to university just because it's something that people have done traditionally, then maybe doing your own business may be an alternative in itself, rather than going through the option of taking a loan, interest-based. And so I think really it's a time for us to go back and start asking ourselves, why is university an option?
Exactly, like when the challenge comes in, when these higher fees come in, when the interest comes in, this is a good thing, like, because it makes people stop, think. Makes people stop just going down the traditional route and think, wait, do I need to go? What is the return on investment? What are the other routes and stuff? Because there's like, there's vocational courses where you just get the straight skills. The university, like Ismail said, it's about becoming like cultured and well-rounded, right? But if that's not what you're looking for, or if you could get that another way, maybe through traveling, then why don't you explore that, isn't it? So
a lot cheaper options, alternatives out there, because again, the university system is such that you go in for 3 or 4 years, you come out with a piece of paper. The paper has no value, let's be honest.
It's a standard now.
It's just something that says you went to an establishment, a building for 3 or 4 years. Someone taught you something, you read a few books, took an exam. I'm simplifying it, but the point being that it's a process that really just shows you can conduct research, you can sit exams.
You can manage your time.
Your career begins once you step out of university. So for those who want to go to university for the explicit purpose of getting a career, you may want to ask yourself, can I do something else?
I mean, look, if you're able to get in front of an employer and you say, look, I didn't go to university, but look what I've done, bang, bang, bang. If you have that kind of portfolio thing, then I don't think they'll care so much about your degree.
Do you think if Mark Zuckerberg went for a job, where would he go? But if he decided to be an employee of somebody else's company, his startup compared to his university experience, what would weigh more? While university studies may still be a fundamental aspect of many professions today, we must never forget that we have reached a level in 2016 where the average graduate in America is in debt for up to $30,000. In fact, up to 70% of all graduates in America graduate with huge debts. Perhaps not the best way to start a career.
Well, I mean, we could easily say Facebook, is
Of course.
obviously heavier, but he did go to Harvard again.
I know, but
so either way, he was winning.
The point being that what really matters at the end of once you've done both, what matters
Exactly,
is what you actually practically learned and developed, rather than, it's an extreme example, obviously. We don't all have Facebooks, but the point being that someone like Ismail, who can present to the employer an example of a business that worked.
Yeah, he already run,
while he went to university, that has more weight to an employer. Because many employers today in the West, for example, specifically in the UK, are complaining that graduates are lacking the very basic skills, mathematics, all spelling. They're lacking these basics. So how could you go to university 3-4 years, you get in debt for the rest of your life, and you still lack the basics? So I think it's an opportunity, really, rather than a threat, for us to go back and say, look, what space does university kind of occupy, and why should we going? And if those who choose to go, how do you go about finding alternative means of funding that course?
And seeing the options out there, really. I mean, just to give an example, for people who might be wondering, what can we do? A friend of mine, he did a graphic design course after college, right? He came out of college, 18, whatever. He did 2 years of that, and now he works in media. Like, he's doing very well in media. He didn't go to university. He just did those 2 years where he was constantly building up his portfolio. So when he goes to the TV channel, he's working for the TV channel now, he can show them, look, I can do it. No, I don't have the theory, I have this. This is what I've actually done, and I can do that for you. I mean, it's completely different level.
And also in many, as you mentioned, the media industry, in many industries today, they're actually doing apprenticeships.
Exactly.
So they'll take you from school and give you the specific training required, technical or otherwise, to excel in that field. And even if you go to university, they'll bring you back to that level of having to learn what you would have learned as an apprentice anyway. So I think really open up your options. Think of what do you want to be after university, what's the objective, and then begin to ask yourself, what are the alternatives out there? You can go to a company that will train you up.
Or you could take, scholarships, something like that. Like, it's not just loan or nothing. There's scholarships, family can help you out, company can sponsor you, isn't it? So
you can do your own business, as we've seen in this example here.
So, I think there are a lot of options out there. And it would be good to do something very practical, like writing out all your options, what the advantages and disadvantages are, and it will help you clear your mind what the options are.
So we're going to go and actually, because this topic is very popular, especially amongst the youth, we're going to go online and find out what the average person has to say about this topic.
Okay, we'll see what people said online.
Exactly. So 187,000 students didn't get a place at their chosen university last year. Are you helping students know their alternatives to university? That's from Blake, 1987.
So that's a reality before the fees went higher.
Exactly.
Is that not everyone's getting into university in the first place?
So,
and I'm sure they were creative in what they chose to do afterwards.
So it's about alternatives here. She's saying, or he's saying, do students know the alternatives to university? It's not the all, and all and be all. So the next one goes on to say, if you can't afford it, it's not an opportunity, it's a contract. I love that one. If you can't afford it, it's not an opportunity, it's a contract, by Bo Nelson. That's a really good concept.
What do you think they mean there exactly?
So basically, if you can't afford to go to university, then I guess it's not an opportunity for you. It's not perhaps something that you should be pushing towards.
No, it's more like a liability than an asset.
Exactly. It's a contract. So I like that.
You're expected to give something in return, kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, I guess once you come out of university, you got the debt. There is that pressure. You can't be risky. I don't think if you had £27,000 debt that you think, let me try and maybe start a company. I've got this good idea. Let me try and start a business. Or let me go traveling for a year. I don't think those are the kind of things.
You want to pay the debt off as soon as possible.
Exactly. And then once you're in that kind of machine, then it will be hard to get out as well.
So students, think of your options, your alternatives. There are many successful people out there today who didn't go to university, or who may have gone to university, but found alternative ways to fund that university experience. We want to now go onto the streets of London and find out what the average person has to say about this topic. And we're really interested in really finding out how people take this to be a challenge or an opportunity for them.
Maybe in the past it's been necessary to achieve or sort of think that you're going to achieve more if you go into higher education. But I think now it's not really that necessary. Because I think it's more about the individual than what like certificate they have. Sort of thing.
Well, at the end, if there's going to be a job, yeah, it's worth it. But because there's no jobs, no, I don't think it's worth it.
So, like, the value of uni comes from the job opportunities.
Yeah, of course. And if you're going to be there and getting no results at the end, then it's not really worth it.
I think it kind of depends on like what job you want to do, really. Like a lot of like jobs, like I do photography, so I think with that I'm doing a higher education like course. But like some of my friends, he barely did college, and he's got like a sick job. So I think it depends on like what job you want to do.
Yeah.
Education is your passport to a successful future. An educated mind is a liberated mind.
I stand in front of you as someone who wasted a load of time in university. Now that I think back, I had so much time to do such amazing things. I suppose I didn't realize that it was at the perfect point to do so much. I didn't have so much responsibility. I was doing all right in my studies already. I could have gone ahead and done so many things. And that's why, after seeing Ismail, I know now that you can do so much yourself.
Explore your passions, do things you love, learn about the things you sincerely and genuinely love. Don't study just for a job. Study for something you love. Study something that you actually have a genuine, sincere passion for. You will advance a lot farther and you'll get a lot more out of it. The ultimate goal is to be an enlightened human being, someone who's learned enough about what they love to actually succeed in their field of study.
Your studies do not have to suffer. In fact, you can find ways to get your revision done early, get your essays done early. If you can create a system, you can free up your time to start a business, master a hobby, start a society, get networking, do whatever it is that you want to do. So when you finish your studies, you can come out with a lot more than a piece of paper.
University is just the beginning. There are so many ways to learn and acquire skills. Don't limit yourself to one standard format of how to learn things. Go out and explore. Seek opportunities wherever you find them. Be more than just a piece of paper after 3 years of studies.
Rise above the mark in your life as a student and see what limits you can push.
Don't be intimidated by university, by the fees, the studies. This is simply another opportunity for you to grow and develop in what you love, in your passions. Seek the opportunities that seek to find you. Go out and be all you can be. Be confident. Seek opportunities to learn, to grow, to develop, and always rise above the mark.